is Malina Tzartzanis. I am from the San Francisco Bay Area, Belmont, California. I have a specific antibody immunodeficiency, which is a subclass of primary immunodeficiency. I have a history of severe pneumonias since I was a child, very young, and in and out of the hospital, and it wasn't like a pneumonia that could be treated with just antibiotics and send you on your way like a community pneumonia. As I got older, I had to be hospitalized, and it was happening every year that I would get, some people would contract pneumonia in the community and take Zithromax and go on their way, and they'd feel bad, but not like what I would get. I would get to the point where I'd have to be, through the emergency room, in the hospital, on IV antibiotics, and it had gotten so bad in my mid-40s that at 2 times it even went into what's called bacteremia, which is basically it affected my blood. The disease had shed into my blood system, and I was deathly ill the last round of pneumonia. And I would tell doctors that they would treat me. I would see pulmonary specialists. I would see, and then every time the winter time would come around, I would be so afraid. And I have 2 kids that go to school, so we would try to stay healthy, but I could never not get sick. And for the most part, I was fairly healthy. I would get sinus infections, but it was always around fall and winter time where I would get pneumonia, and I would be very scared about getting sick because it would just get so bad. So I belong to a medical community called Palo Alto Medical Center. It's near Stanford University. And I had gotten a new internist that my old internist had left, and this new one came in. And last year, in 2016, I had pneumonia yet again, and he had just, in passing, I gave him my history and how many times I've had it and that I need to be hospitalized. And out of the blue, he said, "Has anyone ever checked your immune levels, your IgGs, your IgA?" And I'm very health conscious. I spent 20 years in veterinary medicine, so I'm pretty well versed on medical, but I was unaware about my IgG levels and IgA levels. And I said, "No, nobody's ever checked those that I'm aware of." And he goes, I want to do some blood work on you. And I didn't think much of it. So he had some blood drawn on me. And interestingly enough, my IgA and IgG levels were not that low. They were low, but not alarmingly low. And he said, "I want to send you to an immunologist. I think we need to do some more detective work here." So he sent me to an immunologist in the same medical group. And this immunologist was amazing. When he got my records and I finally went in to see him, he said, "I had studied your medical records for 4 hours." And he says, "I think I know what's wrong with you." And I was taken aback that I actually had something wrong with me, or that maybe there was an answer as to why I'm getting sick so much. So he took a huge history from me, and he said, "I want to do a lot of blood work on you." And I literally must have gone in for like 40 different blood panels, and he explained each one. And the one that he really thought was he thought I might have had common variable disease, immunodeficiency, but I didn't. I actually ended up having, they did a pneumococcal blood test, which tests 23 different strains of pneumococcal diseases and antibodies. And sure enough, that came back. I had like no antibodies to the majority of them. I think 18 out of the 23, I just didn't even have any kind of immune response whatsoever. So he said, here's the answer to your questions. He says, "But in order to specifically diagnose you, we have to vaccinate you with Prevnar, which is a pneumonia vaccine." So I received the vaccine, and think it was like 4.5 weeks later, they drew the panel again, and he called me. He said, I want you to come in. And he showed it to me, and believe it or not, some of my levels actually went down. He did. I had no spike, and he says, you are now officially diagnosed. He says, I have a name for what you have. And he says, you have specific antibody immunodeficiency. And it's like, I didn't know quite what to do with that information. And I said, now what? So then he said, I need to test you for all sorts of autoimmune issues and lupus and this and that and different lung diseases. And thank God at this point I don't have anything other than that I just don't make antibodies to this disease. So I was diagnosed last February, March of 2016. So then I asked my doctor, I said, now what? And he says, well, there's a treatment. And he says, you're going to have to go through infusions. And I had to process all that information. He suggested that I go through IVIG, immunoglobulin, through going through intravenous. Sadly, I have access issues. I have really poor veins because of all the illnesses that I've had. I've had collapsed. I just don't have good veins at all. And so they wanted to place a central line in me for access. And I really did not want to do that. So he suggested that I go through sub-Q. And he explained everything and suggested all that. And it took me about a month to I try to read all I can. And I actually reached out to the IDF. I found them online, called somebody and found somebody in my area and tried to gather as much information as I could. I was a little nervous about going through infusions because I read all the bad stuff, and I went back and I spoke to my doctor and I said, I'm really freaked out about getting other people's I didn't want to have all these, I heard about the side effects. And after about 3 times of going back and forth, he basically looked at me and he said, you either do this or you're going to die of pneumonia. In which he said, I don't want to scare you, but the last time is the last time. And that was it. That's all it took. So I started sub-Q IG in the infusion center at my medical facility for 2 months. And I did fine. Then they switched me to the home healthcare nurse. I had a couple side effects. I'm on a drug called Hizentra. And I did have a few side effects, but it was a learning curve for my body. It had to adapt. And he kept saying, you're going to be okay. Just let it, adapt. I had some really funky side effects, and I almost quit. But I stuck with it, and now I do it on my own every Wednesday night. I think the best the best advice is to learn as much as you can about what you have. Educate yourself. Take it serious. Take care of yourself. Try to keep yourself healthy. Continue with your infusions if that's what you're on. Try to become a self-advocate because no one knows you like you. Ask questions. Get involved in the community and keep yourself healthy. I mean, there's so many subclasses and there's people with much more severe problems than I have. So I think just maintaining, self-advocacy and taking care of your health and learning as much as you can. That's what I've done, is come to these. I mean, this is an amazing organization. So, yeah.